Hey, this is Seagrove, and today I'm just going to be going over my deck and run at Richmond. I finished 91st at 5-3-1 with Zoro Viper. I'm quite confident I was the only person in the room playing the deck. So it's basically 4-4 Zoroark, and then I have a stand-in and a Ditto. But the idea here is to hit for 210 with a Choice Band and a Zoroark, and then use Viper and Hypnotoxic Laser to get me up to 250, and then a Kukui for 270 to hit the big numbers, or to use a combination of one prize attackers, Zoroark, and Toad, along with the Vipers to take out smaller threats. I was very pleased with the list, very pleased with the deck overall, but in terms of text and stuff, Sudowoodo was really good, especially against Archies, I think. Egg was good, but I think maybe it's cuttable. I think it's cuttable, but I liked having it. It's nice because it makes you have to think a little bit less. Dedenne became very good with Cherish Ball, as did Lele. Mewtwo was there mainly for Mewtwo Mew, and as an answer to a Cross Divide. Toad was there for Night March and just finishing off KOs that I barely missed while item locking them, and Archie's Toys. Dowsing Machine, I had a computer search originally, but Dowsing Machine is really good because it allows me to lower other counts and fit more cards in. Mainly Choice Band, Field Blower, Floatstone, and somewhat Rescue Stretcher. I had two. I took one out for a Karen. Then 3 VS Seeker. I started off with 4, but I was dead drawing too much. I think I had 10 cards that would allow me to draw on turn 1, or Bridget. I include that. And I remember something Tord said about you should always have 15 outs at least to a good turn 1 supporter. So I went through and counted, and I had like 10. I was like, okay, I'll go to 15 just because that's what he said, and at least get it from there. So went to 15. It was very consistent. That's when I had the computer search, and then I found that dropping computer search for Dowsing Machine didn't hurt me at all. I only dead drew 1 game from like natural causes. Then 2 Colress was great. 2 Guzma was awesome. I may even put in a 3rd or a Lysander. Karen was amazing against Archies and against Night March, although I didn't play Night March. N was good. Ranger I didn't use 1 time the entire tournament, and so I'd probably either I'll cut that, but let's come back to that later. Kukui was good and necessary, but yeah, it was both. It was awesome. I'd definitely keep it, but not 2. I had 2 originally, but I cut 1 for a 3rd VS Seeker because I went down to 2 VS Seekers at one point. 2 Choice Band was great. 1 Floatstone. I often found I wanted a float, like was looking for it. So I'd cut Ranger for either a float, a Guzma, or a Toad. Probably a float or a Guzma, and now that Aggro is obviously so good, probably a Guzma. But I love the deck, and I like the list overall. Mainly the thing I change is a Ranger. So now getting into the matchups, you can see over here I have who I played against and such. So round 1 I played against a guy named Ryan N. He was awesome. He was playing like Perfection, a standard version, but with VS Seekers. I think my deck was just a little bit stronger, and I won game 1. Game 2 I was actually worried, but because he got a really good start and he had a Naganadel in his discard, I was like, wow, I'm going to have to Lele for Bridget. He's going to snipe that. Turn 2, I'm going to have to play a Shaman and draw cards. He's going to snipe that, and he's just going to knock out a Zoroark, and I'm going to lose. But then I drew for turn, it was Bridget, and I only played 1, so I was like so happy. Then I played, he ended up not being able to find fire, which he was playing quite a few, so that was strange. So I ended up winning that one either way, I think. But round 2, I played against Luke Morsa from Celio's Network. Obviously, he's an awesome dude. He was playing Trevenant, so when I sat down and I saw he was playing Trevenant, I was like, oh, good, this shouldn't be too hard. Then came the power plants, and I had discarded turn one. I discarded a Skyfield and put down a Skyfield, not knowing there were power plants in his deck. And then between the power plants, the item lock, and the Fabas, it was awful. So I lost to him game one. Game two, I went first. He started Lone Phantom. I started like a Zorua with a Seviper on the bench. And then I Lele for Bridget, got 3 more Sevipers, Hypnotoxic, passed, and won the game. So that was pretty cool. And then game 3, I felt like I knew, okay, I can't waste my Skyfield like I was game 1. Turn 1, I had a fine turn 1. I got a Bridget and everything. And then I end for 6, but did not find a Zoroark GX on my turn 2. But did get a baby Zoroark, so I did a stand-in, knocked out his Trevenant, got a Zoroark off my prizes. Later I realized I had prized 3 Zoroark. He ace trainers me into a Colress, so I Colress for 8. No Zoroark, but I'm able to take another knockout with my baby Zoroark. Next turn, he ace trainers me again. I Colress for 9. No Zoroark. Take a knockout. Oh, and my other knockout, I got another Zoroark off my prizes. But he ace trained that away. Colress for 9. Again, no Zoroark. And then he ends up just winning off of that. So that was pretty rough. Went on to round 3. I played against a guy named Gabriel from Brazil. Awesome dude. He played Archie Stoys. Game 1, he prized his Cross Divide, and so I think between that and having Sudowoodo was pretty favorable for me. Game 2, I was able to answer with the Baby Mewtwo, if I remember correctly. So I can't remember if we went to a Game 3 or not, but one of those games I think I was able to answer with Baby Mewtwo and won that way. It was Game 3. He won Game 2, so then Game 3 I won. Super cool dude, visiting family in New York from Brazil, so just a really nice guy too. Was happy to play against such great opponents the entire time. Round 4, playing a guy against Michael, again another amazing opponent. He was playing Egro, item locking me, and playing Faba, and playing Power Plant, just like Luke was. So that was rough. Both of them were really good about keeping me from like trading under Power Plant. I was bad about that. So shout out to them for keeping me from getting penalties and stuff. He was a really cool dude. I've seen him before, but hadn't really met him all the way. So, and really enjoyed our games. Great dude, but just couldn't overcome it. I did win game 2, but if I remember correctly, I won game 2, and then game 3, couldn't get there. So, round 5, I played against another Luke. I had sat near him round 1, and I remembered him because he was playing Haunch Grow, Hand Deny. And I thought going in this was an auto loss, but the lock wasn't as bad as I thought. I couldn't play items which I didn't care, or tools which I didn't care about. DCE and Skyfield, which was rough because he would put on Silent Lab to turn off like Shamans and Dedenes and my poison and stuff. So I just couldn't draw as well, but being able to trade it was fine. So he wins game 1, I win game 2, and then game 3 he was like, okay, I think I figured out this matchup. I just don't put down things that aren't Haunch Grow if I can. And I'm like, okay, well, this is gonna stink. But then time ran out in his turn 1, and he ended up putting down a bunch of stuff turn 1, probably because time was called. So I don't think he would have if they hadn't called time, but because he had done that, I felt pretty good about the game if we had more time. But again, I don't think he would have done that. So anyways, he was a really great guy too. Round 6, I played against Pat. Pat was awesome. So turn, I won the coin flip, and the guy's like, all right, you may begin. And Pat's like, okay. He flips over his card. It's a Zubat, and that's his only card. And I flip over mine, and I'm like, okay. I play Cherish Ball, find a Lele, see if Bridget's in there. It is. See if I have 3 Seviper. I do. And I'm like, oh, I think I got it. And then everyone, this is like 5 seconds into the round, everyone around me just turns and looks back at their game. And I just Bridget for 3 Viper, poison him, and pass and win the game. And then around game 2, he was I Bridgeted turn 1, and then after my second turn, I attack on my second turn, and he starts his third turn. I look in my discard and I see a Lele, and I don't see a Lele on my bench. And I look at his prize cards. He hadn't knocked it out, and I knew I'd put a Lele down, so I was really confused. And so I call a judge, and I hadn't told him yet. And he looks at me like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Oh, dude, you didn't do anything. I just screwed up, and I think I'm about to get a game loss." So I call the judge over. The judge is like, "What's up?" And I just say, "Well, I have this Lele here. I have no clue if I just put it here turn 1 instead of on my bench, or if I just put my discard on top of it and then just bench this extra Viper, which had no impact on the game." And my opponent could have just said, like, "I have no clue." Or he could have said, "You put that down there turn 1. But he didn't. He was like, "No, I think you just put your discard on top of it." And he could have just won a game off of that. And then we would have to go to a game 3. But he didn't do that. And so I just had mad respect for that. And before we were talking about, he's a dad as well. We were talking about that. He's just an awesome dude. And I ended up winning the game. But I just had like such chill and cool opponents. And then my next round I played against Sam. And Sam was so, like, all my opponents. These are the coolest opponents I've ever played. Sam was playing Pikarom. And I knew of him, but I didn't know him felt like I didn't know him that well. And we played, I talked to him before, but we got talking about coding, which was really cool because he's a coder as well. And yeah, he's just an awesome dude. And he was so chill and, like, I don't know. I just had great opponents. But anyways, he was playing Pikarom. He won game 1. I won game 2. Game 3, he put a energy on Shaman and passed. And I Lele. And I had a good board. I didn't really need a Bridget. So I Lele, I Choice Band, I DCE, and I Floatstone active. And I just start going through my deck. Well, I don't know if I have the DCE, but I find it really quickly. But no, I did have it. And I had a Kukui in hand too. And I didn't even think about it. But if I had just Kukui'd, I would have knocked it out. Even knowing that, I'm not 100 if I would have Kukui'd, because I Cold Rest and ended up getting a really nice board state off of it. And like, I Cold Rest for like 8 or something like that. So you'd think like, oh, I'm going to hit. It's probably not 8. It's probably like 6 or 7 or something like that. But you'd think like, okay, I'm going to hit one of my 4. I ended up, I Shamaned as well, and I Dedenade, and I never hit a Hypnotoxic. So missed the knockout on the Shaman, and that ended up in the end costing me the game. He went down to 0 cards, and he had 4 prizes left, and he knew in his prizes he had his Stadium and a Lightning. And I don't know if he had more than 1 Lightning in there, but he got those 2 off of the 2 prizes, and that's what he needed to win the game the next turn. So he got me, and yeah, just a great dude, though. Really, just had so much fun playing. This is probably the most fun regional I've had. So just shout out again to my opponents. And my next opponent, Tristan, is a good friend of mine. I was actually borrowing his dowsing machine for the tournament. And he was playing Archies, and I was able to do this thing I had planned out with Toad, where like they put all these energies onto their Mewtwo or whatever, and then I Guzma their Blastoise, Quaking Punch, pass, or like Quaking Punch, don't poison. The next turn, with like the right number of Vipers down, is 3 Vipers down, you poison, Quaking Punch, and Karen, and then you Quaking Punch again, or no, and then coming into your turn, he gets knocked out. So you have the option, depending on what they bring up. Do I want to Guzma? Do I want to try and take this thing out with a Zoroark, or do I want to like Quaking Punch or whatever? It just gives you so much control over the game. And I was able to do that and win. And yeah, so then I played against I saw Connor F on my last one. I was like, oh, I'm playing against Connor Fenton. He's playing Bees. And it was not Connor Fenton, it was Connor Foster. He's playing Sableye Garbodor. And he game 1, I think he would have gotten the lock on me, but he he was just really he said like, I just screwed that up, I think I'm just too tired. He like was convinced his reset stamp was in his prizes, so he gladioned for it, but it wasn't there, and then he ended up not being able to get the lock because of that. So then game 2 he got the lock, and I wasn't familiar. I knew the deck, but I didn't know how good this lock was. I wasn't familiar with the way that like the chip and the hiker and stuff, so he beat me. I just scooped after 3 turns. I was like, I don't know how strong, if this is an unstoppable lock, but it feels very unlikely. And in my head, I knew his deck didn't seem like the most consistent, because he had even said that, like, sometimes my deck dead draws. So I was hoping that might happen in game 3. In game 3, I went first, and I poisoned him, and then he took his turn, but didn't get anything besides his lone Sableye out, and then I just Bridgeted for 3 Sevipers on my next turn, and 1 going into his turn. So I got that donk with the Sevipers, if you count that. It wasn't a true donk, but I did get 3 true donks. 1 against the egg, 1 against a phantom, and 1 against a bat. So that was really, really cool. I really loved the deck, really enjoyed it. Had a great time in Richmond, hanging out, seeing people, and playing a deck that I love, and not playing in day 2. But I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Peace.